like the world can't hear me. Lord, please hear me.
My name is Matt, and I am back for my Strikeforce Heavy Artillery St. Louis predictions. As you know, Strikeforce has a lot of amateurs on the prelims, so I'm going to do only the main card. Probably a lot of fighters that neither of us have heard about on that prelim card anyway. So fight takes place at the Scott Trade Center in St. Louis there, and it's going to be broadcasted on Showtime. Our first fight on the main card, we have Antoine Brett versus Rafael Feixa. Antoine Brett, he's mainly a striker boxer. He's got a record of 11-3. 9 of his wins come via KO. He's coming off a TKO victory over Scott Lighty, and he also has notable wins over Scott Lighty and Carmelo Marrero, who is a UFC veteran. He is fighting Rafael Feixa, who trains at the Black House with Anderson Silva and Antonio Rodrigo Nogueira. Excuse me. He's a Muay Thai fighter. He's got an 8-2 record. He's also a KO artist with 7 of his wins coming via KO. This one, I imagine, is going to be a stand-up fight. Antoine Brett's got a lot of potential behind him, but you know, Rafael Feixa is no slouch. He's been in some wars, you know, with some damn good fighters. I tend to lean towards Brett in this one. You know, he packs a lot of weight into a 205 frame. He's got a mean right hand, and whoever wins this fight, I think, is going to sleep. I think Brett's probably got a better chin. I'm going to go with Antoine Brett, second round TKO. Then we have Roger Gracie versus Kevin Randleman. Kevin Randleman, we all know he was the very first UFC heavyweight champion. He's a wrestler. He's got a 17-14 record. He's on a 2-fight losing streak. He's a veteran of Strikeforce, obviously. Pride in the UFC. He's got notable wins over Krokop, Pedro Hizo, Babalu, and Ninja Hua. He's fighting Roger Gracie. Name Gracie speaks for itself. He's a Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu fighter, obviously, second-degree black belt. And he's 2-0. Both of his wins in his career were over decent opponents, Ron Waterman and then Yuki Kondo. He's the 2005 Abu Dhabi champion. And the sweet thing about that is he submitted all 8 of his opponents. Didn't win by points, didn't win by decision. It was these submissions on all 8 of his opponents. Plus, he is an 8-time World Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu champion, which is actually a record. Randleman and Gracie, they're real similar in size. Gracie's supposed to be, the up-and-coming Gracie, the Gracie who saves the namesake of the family. Randleman is good at neutralizing fighters. I mean, it's possible that he could get caught in a submission. Gracie's favors a lot of chokes, but a lot of the chokes that he favors are gi chokes, and obviously he won't be wearing a gi here. I think Gracie's going to win the fight, and I really want to say he's going to submit him, but I mean, there's a good chance that Randleman could neutralize the fight, make it a pretty boring fight, and take it to a decision. So that's going to be my pick. I'm going to go with Roger Gracie, victorious by unanimous decision. Then we move on to Ronaldo Jacare Souza versus Joey Villasenor. Jacare is a very skilled fighter. He also fights at Black House. He's a Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu fighter with 11-2 record. He's coming off a submission win over Matt Lindland at Strikeforce Evolution via arm triangle, if I'm not mistaken. Before that, he had a no contest to Mayhem Miller. I believe it was an illegal soccer kick, and then he had an up kick KO loss to Gegard Mousasi. And then before that fight, he was on a 10-fight winning streak, in some pretty tough fights. He is facing Joey Villasenor, he's a Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu boxer. He's coming off a win over Cyborg Santos, I believe. He's got a record of 27-6. He's on a 4-fight winning streak. And he's also has notable wins over Cyborg, David Loizo, a UFC veteran, and Phil Baroni. Souza trains at Black House with Nogueira, and then with Rafael Feixa from the earlier fight. Villasenor is a tough kid. He's got decent strikes, And you know, he's just a real tough bastard. He trains with Greg Jackson and Shane Carwin and Rashad Evans and them. You know, so he's just bred tough. I think though, you know, he's got decent wrestling, and he's a Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu artist, but you know, he's not a Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu artist the likes of Jacare. I think this fight probably going to go to the ground. I think that Villasenor would have a lot better chance winning this fight if he could keep it standing, although I don't think that's going to happen. So it's tough, you know. Like, I can see Souza putting him away, but I don't know if he will or not. So you know, I'm going to keep it safe. I got to get my record back. I dropped below the 500 mark. I'm going to keep it safe, and I'm going to go Jacare unanimous decision. Then, you know, we get to the better fights. I mean, not the better fights, not that they're bad fights, but we get to, you know, the fights where the general fan's going to recognize most of the names. We got Antonio Bigfoot Silva versus Andre Arlovski. Bigfoot Silva was the original Elite XC heavyweight champion. He's a Muay Thai and karate fighter. He's got a 13-2 record, and he's coming off a loss to Fabricio Verdum. He's got notable wins over Cabbage, Rico Rodriguez, Justin Eilers. Justin Eilers is the fight where he won the Elite XC Heavyweight Championship, although he tested positive for steroids directly after the fight. He is facing Andre Arlovski. Andre Arlovski, we all know from UFC Heavyweight Championship. He is a Sambo fighter. He's got a 15-7 record. He's on a 2-fight losing streak. Both fights were first round KOs, one being the 22-second destruction by Brett Rogers, and then it was somewhere in the region of a minute 48 KO loss to Fedor Emelianenko. Before that, he was on a 5-fight win streak, including wins over Roy Nelson, Ben Rothwell, Fabricio Verdum. He's also got, you know, the win over Tim Sylvia, which won him the UFC Heavyweight Championship. The thing is about this fight is Arlovski's ground game has always been very underrated due to the fact that he's such a good striker. Antonio Silva, you know, he does train in Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu, but he's primarily a stand-up fighter. Arlovski's boxing is real crisp. In the fight with Fedor, he showed real crisp boxing. Silva's going to want to keep it standing, but I think that's probably where he has the less chance of winning this fight. I think Arlovski really shouldn't have much trouble putting him away. I'm going to go Andre Arlovski, first round TKO. Then we get here to the main event. It is Brett Rogers versus the Strikeforce heavyweight champion, Alistair Overeem. Rogers is a boxer wrestler. He's got a 10-1 record, 9 wins coming via KO. 8 of those wins were first round KOs, you know, including the 22-second dismantling of Arlovski that I previously mentioned. He's fighting the champion, Alistair Overeem, who is a Muay Thai kickboxer. He's got a record of 32-11-1. He had a no contest versus Krokop, I think. He's on a 4-fight win streak. The guy hasn't defended his title since 2007, sometime in November, you know, over 3 years. He does have some notable wins. He beat Vitor Belfort twice, Igor Vonshantin, Paul Bointello, which is the fight that won him the belt, and then he beat Mark Hunt recently. A lot of allegations that Overeem's been on steroids. That's why he hasn't fought in American soil since 2007. Brett Rogers has even poked shots in the media saying that he can, you know, produce 1,000 people who would agree with him that he's, you know, on steroids. You know, with all that being said, Brett Rogers is a tough dude. You know, he's going to have a very successful career here in MMA. Overeem has fought a lot of people, but the big name fighters he's fought, like the Chuck Liddells and the Mauricio Shogun Huas, I mean, just to name a couple, Ricardo Aronas, you know, these guys have all put him away. He's a big dude. I don't, you know, he likes to throw the knees a lot. He uses his Muay Thai background. I really don't see him, you know, able to get that going with Brett Rogers here. So I think it's going to be, you know, a good night for Brett Rogers. I'm going to go Brett Rogers, second round KO, and he's going to win the Strikeforce heavyweight title. So those are my picks for heavy artillery. You know, please leave a comment and subscribe to my YouTube page, and shout out to Buddhasport.com, Nick Marabella. Thank you, and see you.